Life Unscripted with Kevin Shook.
Let's see if I say this right. County Council at Large for Fayette County, Indiana.
That's right.
Sweet.
But one of my earliest memories as a child was watching Richard Nixon resign from office. And while I didn't understand all about Watergate and what was going on, from that point forward, I was always interested in politics. I really had almost an unhealthy
like an obsession
with it,
okay.
Right? And I never did quite get rid of it. And when I was in college, I had an internship at the State House, and I walked in there that night to take the test to see if I could become one, and I went, "Oh yeah, this is what I want to do." You know.
Really? So
yeah.
When you did your internship, were you assigned to a certain politician, or?
I was assigned to the media office of the Indiana Democratic Party.
Okay.
Growing up in Connersville, you have to understand the history of our community, and Franklin Roosevelt's WPA during the Depression was very good to our hometown. And with the subsequent power of labor unions after Roosevelt's time, when you grew up when I did and you were interested in politics, more likely than not, you thought of yourself as a Democrat because
right.
your kids and grandkids, your parents and grandparents thought of themselves that way. But when I got to the legislature, I began looking around going, this isn't how I think. So I went to my state representative, who was in his first term at the time.
Who was that?
His name was Steve Robbins, and he is a businessman in Connersville. He was in his first term. And I said to him, he was an old family friend, and I said, "Steve, what am I going to do?" And Robbins gave me the best political advice I ever got. He said, "You are too young to decide what you are and what you are not. Take your time, look at everything, and then decide." And 5 years later, on a beautiful spring day in 1996, I walked into the National Guard Armory in Connersville, where my precinct was, and I asked for my first Republican ballot. And you should have seen the people working the polls that day. Their jaws hit the desk.
So they weren't used to that?
No, they weren't used to me coming in and asking for a Republican ballot. That was a brand new thing.
Okay.
And I did it because I knew in my heart that I was a Reagan Republican.
Okay.
And I still am.
So when you said a Republican ballot, was that a straight ticket?
It was the primary. So in Indiana, during the primary, you can ask for whatever ballot you want, Democrat or Republican. And I had always asked for a Democrat ballot before. But I knew in 96 I was a Republican. So
96. Mm-hmm. So tell me about the position that you're running for.
Okay. It is Fayette County Council. And it's an at-large seat. There are 4 districts and 3 at-large seats. So anybody in the county can vote for up to 3 people when they pick up a Republican ballot on May 7th. And there are 6 people, including myself, that are running for these 3 positions. I've been honored over the last 4 years to be one of those county council positions. In Indiana, locally, city and county governments are a little different. The mayor is the executive body of a city. The city council is both the legislative and fiscal body. In the county commissioners are the executive body and legislative body. The council is only the fiscal body. So the only way we can affect policy per se is choosing not to fund something that's being requested by the commissioners or another county elected official, or reducing it at a lower level than what's been requested. We can't add something in that hasn't been requested. That's just not legal for us to do.
Give me a rundown. Give me a timeline of positions that you've been elected to and have held throughout your lifetime.
Sure. Well, I got to thinking about this on the way over here. I was on the committee that raised enough money to buy our permanent Republican headquarters.
Is that a county, Fayette County?
Fayette County headquarters,
Okay.
Republican headquarters. We bought the building. I forget what year it was, but it was early on when I became active. So I've been on the Central Committee now 27 years. I served on Connersville City Council as a Republican during the term of Mayor Maury Connell in the early aughts. I've been our county chairman twice. The second time, I took over a term that had been vacated when the Central Committee unanimously asked me to come back to finish it. I ran for mayor in 2003 and lost in the primary. I ran for state representative in 2006 and lost in the primary. That's, I've been a state convention delegate 8 times from Fayette County. My son was actually the youngest Fayette County delegate in history.
Oh, wow.
In 2016, he was 18. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. One thing, I didn't run for office from 2006 until 2020.
I think you mentioned that to me. Kind of, took a break.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. Because it happened here in Richmond. Nothing about my state representative race in 2006 went very well.
Now, who'd you run against?
Tom Nolman.
Okay.
And Mr. Nolman is from Union County, and he was he served as our state representative for 2-3 terms. But it was an open seat when we ran. Nothing about that campaign for me went very well, and especially the night that I went to visit Wayne County Republicans in Richmond. The weather was kind of bad. It was one of those days where I just should have stayed in bed. I'd done better just to stay in bed. Even though I was a little frazzled by the time I got there, I knew that I could answer any question on any state issue they could throw at me. So the first question out of the gate is from an older gentleman sitting in the second row. I'll never forget this. And he looks at me and he says, "Why do you want to run for this job?" Such a basic question, right?
Right.
Nobody had ever asked me that before. Not even me.
That's huge.
And
well, it's huge that you even admit it just now.
Well, I've had a long time to think about it.
Right.
And I wasn't prepared to answer it. And it showed. And at the end of the evening, I saw that he was hanging back. He wanted to speak to me privately. And he came up to me. And gosh, I wish I could remember this man's name, but I'll never forget his face at the moment. And he looked at me and he said, "I don't want you to be upset about what happened here tonight. I've already talked to some people, and you're the guy I'm going to vote for. But son, if you want to win this race, you had better be able to answer that question."
Absolutely.
And it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I've never forgotten it. And I didn't run for office again for 14 years because I swore to myself that I would never do it again unless I felt in my heart that it wasn't about me.
Right.
It should never be about the candidate. It should always be about the voters.
Right. You're a servant.
I am a public servant, and it is an emphasis on that. And in 2020, I told the people of Fayette County that I thought I could be helpful. I had developed a really diverse career. I'd had experience in manufacturing and tourism and finance and grants and economic development. I'd had experience at every level of government, federal, state, local. And I thought I could be helpful. And I think I have been. And maybe we'll get into that here in a little while. But
absolutely.
But I think the people of Fayette County should reelect me because they're never going to have to guess whose side I'm on.
Their side.
Exactly.
So we've had other shows up here, with other candidates for positions, more locally, Richmond. Back to while you took your time off and everything else. If they were asked why they were running, they would have pulled over that stack of papers and started looking about infrastructure. Like, you should know why you're running. You should have an elevator pitch. You should have a one-liner, a two-liner, something to know why you're running, because there had to have been something that caused you to run that's not on your book of paper. So kudos to you for humbling up and then, making yourself vulnerable and be like, okay, I should kind of take some time.
I lost that race, and in retrospect, I probably should have, and
taught you a lot. And
it did. So, too often during the last 4 years, I've kind of felt like I felt like the people of Fayette County's best interest needed to be protected. And of course, that's what I do for a living, is try to protect people's best interests,
Absolutely.
And so, Connersville's really changed. I mean, when I grew up, most of the folks growing up were Democrats. Well, it's not that way anymore. I think we have one county commissioner that's a Democrat and the county surveyor. That's it. The mayor, the clerk treasurer, the city council, the county council, the auditor, the treasurer, both judges, like I said, 2 of the 3 commissioners, they're all Republican.
And, you're here today because Phil Quinn kind of pulled us together, and we all love Phil, and Phil is big into this stuff. So he served on the city council here for, I think, 8 years. He'll correct me if I'm wrong. And he's just very active, even not living here. Yeah. But, he taught me a lot about this, about local level versus national level, Democrat versus Republican versus independent. On the Richmond level, watching it this year, like, to me, it don't freaking matter. I've never voted like a straight ticket. Okay. I can find good and bad in both parties. If I was to lean, I'd probably lean a little more to the right. But like you said, it's kind of how you're raised. So that's in Connersville, you were kind of raised.
I was
in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, but
just because everyone else was.
Everyone else was. My grandparents were. My mom was. Right. That's just what you feel like you are. But then when you start looking around a little bit and you grow up and things change in the community a little, and Connersville's changed a lot. A lot from the time I grew up.
So Ford was down there, right? When you were there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ford, D&M, which was, it was called Design and Manufacturing. And if you bought a Kenmore dishwasher from Sears in the 1970s, it was likely made in Connersville.
Wow. What class were you? When did you graduate?
1987.
Okay. So I got hired to take pictures of a class reunion down there, and they told me there was like 300 people in their senior class.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't realize how big it was back years
then.
ago.
Oh yeah. There was originally 369 students in my class.
Wow.
Only about 280 graduated.
So I've graduated from Lynn. Okay. There was like
Randolph
Southern, just north of here. There was like less than 50 people in my senior class.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I was at a meeting. I was at a Kiwanis Club meeting the other day in Connersville, and the current school superintendent was the speaker. And he mentioned that, when I was in school, there were about 1,700 kids that went to Connersville High School. It's down under 1,000 now.
Oh, wow. All right. So let's kind of wrap this up. Scott, when is Election Day?
May 7th. We have 6 candidates in this Republican primary. So when you pick up the ballot, it's all Republican candidates, right? So that part of it really doesn't matter in the primary. So you will have to go and push every button for the people that you want.
Okay.
And in the at-large race, you can vote for up to 3 of the 6 of us.
Great. Cool.
You don't have to vote for 3. You can only vote for 1 or 2 or whatever you want to do. But so that's how you handle that.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on Life Unscripted.
Yeah.
And we'll wrap this up. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Life Unscripted with Kevin Shook.